This is One Fat Boy, and here are my NBA game predictions for February 16th. Tonight there's 11 games, and I'll be going over the spreads and over-unders for each of these games. For the Hawks at the Magic, I'll lean towards Atlanta minus 5.5. So I expect both these teams to play well offensively, but I think Atlanta just has better tools overall, a little bit more star power. That should lead them to the win. Between having Trae Young and Clint Capella, I think that's enough to beat the Magic. I think the Magic will keep it close, but I think Atlanta's trying to fight for that playoff spot, or at least a play-in spot. This should be a must-win or a game they should win. So expect Atlanta to try and come out in the first half, at least like build a lead and hold that lead throughout the second half. And then Orlando, they have to, once again, keep it close to maybe they can sneak one, but I would just lean towards Atlanta winning this game, as this is more important to them as for the Magic. And we'll go over 221.5 as both these teams can line it up, and I do expect that to happen. For the Nets at the Knicks, go with Brooklyn plus 5.5. So I think with the trade for Seth Curry, I think that's going to be a little boost for the Nets offense, as we saw in his first game. I do see him continuing, maybe not as great, but a similar level of production from him against the Knicks. So I think Brooklyn will keep it close with 5.5, maybe sneak out with a win. With the Knicks, never know what team really is going to show up, as they've been pretty inconsistent throughout the year. As some games they score a lot and then give up a lot of points, and sometimes they struggle to score the ball, but then they play like great defense the whole game. So really don't know with the Knicks, but I think with the Nets, with who they have playing, newfound like spirit for basketball, I think Brooklyn will be able to keep it close or possibly get a win. We'll go over 212.5. I personally really don't know where the spread is going to end up for this game, as Knicks spreads are usually pretty low, but then Brooklyn spreads are also pretty high. So I think saying over 212.5 is reasonable, as the Knicks have been scoring better, and then Brooklyn can, I'm sure, still light up the score even without like Harden and Durant, as they're injured and one's not on the team anymore. I think the Brooklyn offense, just how they run, they play with pace, so should be at over 212.5 type of game. For the Wizards at the Pacers, so right off the bat, I'm just going to say this is a spread that I would not bet on, as both these teams are pretty even, and with the Pacers' new trade and playing last night, I think on paper, I want to say they're better than the Wizards, but since they played last night, I can't really put too much faith in them. And then the Wizards, if certain players get going on the Wizards, like a Kuzma or a Pope, they're also tough to beat too, so I'm just going to lean towards a Washington -1. But overall, I would just avoid betting on the spread for this type of game, as it's literally just a coin toss. But I'd just lean towards the Wizards, as I think they're mostly healthy, and Pacers are figuring things out still, and also played last night. We'll be going over 218.5, as I think both these teams play well enough on offense to where they'll be able to light up the scoreboard and figure out each other's defenses, as both play kind of like average defense. Maybe Wizards play like worser, Pacers a little better, but overall, they lean towards more offense when they do win their games, and it really doesn't come down to defense for either of these teams. So hence I'll be going with an over in this game, and maybe Washington just like sneaking by with the win. For Detroit at Boston, so even though Boston played last night, I think they should handle Detroit without a problem. And if they can play how they did against Philadelphia, this really shouldn't be a problem for Boston. But I don't know, just how they were in the beginning of the season, I wouldn't be surprised if this does stay within 13.5, but I think Boston have really found a groove as of late, and they should win. They should probably win by double digits too, covering this like 13.5 spread. We'll go under 214. I know Boston, I wouldn't be surprised if they scored that over like 115. It's just, can Detroit score on Boston? Because if Boston plays the defense how they have been playing, Detroit shouldn't be scoring over 90 points. So hence why I'm going under 214 as Boston. They're on fire before this All-Star break. For Portland at Memphis, lean towards Portland plus 12.5. So Morant didn't play last night. I don't know if he'll be available tonight against Portland, but if he is or he isn't, I just have to lean towards Portland plus 12.5 as Memphis played last night. And Portland's been surprising me, but if they keep on playing how they have and just Simon's stepping up and other players stepping up for Portland, that should keep them close against Memphis. Maybe not win, but overall I think I've been underestimating Portland a little bit to start out, but I'm just going to put faith in them. But the moment I put faith in them, they're just going to have like an awful game and just lose by 30. But I wouldn't be surprised if Portland is able to stay in the game by like 12.5 points. I will be going over 221.5 as if Portland does, it's going to be due to their offense. Like Simons is going to get hot, or someone Portland is going to get hot and keep them in the game. Memphis overall should still win. I will be going over 221 because Memphis, they can score the ball well. Like who's going to defend on Portland? As I really don't have faith in Portland's defense still. So over 221.5 and Portland keeping it closer. For the Spurs at the Thunder, I'm going to have to lean towards OKC plus 6.5. So the Thunder have been playing well. They've been keeping their games close. And the Spurs, they're about the same. But I think overall, I just lean towards OKC plus 6.5. If Giddey keeps playing how he does, like back-to-back triple doubles, that should really help the Thunder like win, or at least keep it within 6.5. And the Spurs, they're more of an offense, so expect a faster pace from them than OKC. I think they're just more of a defensive-minded than an offensive-minded team, as their game's usually a little more lower scoring, but with the Spurs, they'll push pace, so expect a little faster pace of the team. And like this is also due to the fact that they're younger too, so like more like turnovers and mistakes that'll just lead to breaks, so that'll keep up the pace. So hence I'm going over 216.5, as this might be a little more up and down type of game, and the Thunder have been playing better on offense, having more high scoring games, and the Spurs games have always been, well, this season a little higher scoring, so over 216.5. And I'm just going to predict that this will just be a close game. But overall, spread-wise, probably a game I wouldn't bet on, but I would just bet on just this being closer, a close game. For the Toronto at Minnesota, I lean towards Toronto -1. So Minnesota played last night, and it was an overtime game, so that's just a benefit for Toronto. And Toronto has tools with like Siakam, Anunoby. There's multiple players that they can rely on to score, and they play team basketball. So I'm just going to have to lean towards Toronto winning this game overall. We'll be going over 226.5 as Minnesota's defense is very like high risk, high reward, and all Minnesota games are very high scoring. So I'd lean towards Toronto having over like 115 points, 114, somewhere in that range over. And Toronto can have some high scoring games too, but they're more like in the range tune of like 216 to 220. But with Toronto, with playing against Minnesota, just like always add like 10 more points to like the opposing team's score. So that would put like average Toronto game at like 226 to 230. So over 226.5 there. And then Toronto, they can clamp down on defense. They can run some plays, get some easy baskets. Minnesota's just going to put a lot of effort in, and like they'll still try to win, but I think they'll come up short. It's going to just, when it comes to a close game, I think Minnesota's going to be a little gassed, and then Toronto will have a little more life to their legs that they'll sneak away with a win. For Sacramento at the Bulls, so with DeRozan playing as hot as he has been, I think Chicago is going to cover the spread at -6 and win. I don't think the Kings, with their trade, have become like a mid-tier team. I think they're still like towards the bottom of the league, but now it's the bonus. That's someone you have to like respect each night. But overall, their defense still not going to be great. Offensively, they're still going to score a lot of points. I'll be going over 234 due to that fact, as both teams can light up the scoreboard. I think Bulls can play better defense than the Kings, but I think both teams will still score a lot. Bulls obviously and not a lot more, as can give it to DeRozan, can give it to Levine. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if DeRozan, well, I feel like DeRozan will continue that 35-plus point streak. He should score at least 30. And Levine, no one's going to be guarding Levine that great on the Kings, so both the wing players should have good games for the Bulls, and they should come away with the win. A high-scoring shootout type of game. For the Rockets at the Suns, so even though Phoenix played last night, I think Phoenix is really deep. I'm sure they're going to want to try and win the game in the first half to rest their starters because they're playing back-to-back. But it's also their last game before the All-Star break, so they could afford to play their starters a little bit more, as they'll have a few more days off. Houston, obviously, towards the bottom of the league, not that great. I think it's going to be tough for the Rockets to stay within 15.5, so hence I just have to lean towards Phoenix minus 15.5, because if the Suns do win this in the first half, and it's just like bench unit against bench unit, the Suns' bench unit is decent. Like, will destroy other teams' bench units plus some of their starters. I will be going over 234, as the Suns should light up the Rockets. They won't have to play against the Clippers defense, which is much better than the Rockets. So a lot of easy baskets for the Suns. That's what I'm seeing in a high-scoring game. As the Rockets, they'll give up a lot of points, and they're still able to get a lot of points. But high-scoring game with a big Phoenix win. For Denver at the Warriors, I'll go with Denver +5. Even though overall, this probably is a game I wouldn't bet the spread on too much, as Golden State, I don't know, they've been playing all their games pretty close as of late, so that's why I'm just leaning towards the Denver +5. And if Jokic can just backpack his team, which is what he's been doing all year, to a win, or at least keeping it close, I just have to lean towards that, as I say one of the better options to defend Jokic would be Draymond Green, but Green is out. So what do the Warriors have? I guess they have Looney to try and slow him down, but I think Jokic will have his way against Golden State. But I think Golden State has enough tools that they'll probably come out with the win. If they just make a few clutch threes at the end of the game, if it's a close one, which I think overall will be a close game. It's going to be a little too much for the Nuggets to handle. We'll be going under 224.5. Well, 224, as Golden State, they can clamp down or just slow the pace of the game down a lot, which generally leads to a low-scoring game. And Denver, they can score at a higher rate, but between Golden State's defense and just kind of a little up and down how Denver scores are, I've seen them score under 100 points. I don't see this game going over 224, or for sure under 232, but I don't see this ending up as a high-scoring game, just a slower-paced game. Probably a few mistakes on both ends of the floor. As the game flows through, Jokic won't be a massive amount of turnovers from him. I think Golden State just slower-paced team, but close game overall. For the Jazz at the Lakers, we lean towards Jazz winning this game, because you have LeBron, who's day-to-day. You got Anthony Davis, who's day-to-day. So it's going to be interesting who shows up to play for the Lakers. And then Utah, I think they're just a better team overall this season. There's a reason why they're in the top half of the Western Conference, as they just have more tools. Their interior defense, led by Gobert, it's going to be hard for the Lakers to get the easy baskets inside. And then they're going to have to really get their scoring from three if they're going to stay in this game. But if Utah's hot from three, I think Utah's just going to win it. And then 4.5, I think Utah, I wouldn't be surprised if Utah wins this by double digits, but spread stands at 4.5, and I'd lean towards that one. I also lean towards under 227, because especially if LeBron and Davis is out, that means Westbrook is going to have to lead the team. So really sporadic there. So I could see Utah clamping down the Lakers. Then Utah as of late has been winning by larger amounts too. So will Utah be like over that like 116? Because I know earlier in the season like they'd win, but it wouldn't be like by like 15, be more like 9 points. So if they hold the Lakers down to like 100, they just somehow Utah still have like 109 points. But I think Utah will be probably winning in that like 8 to 12 range. They'll probably have that like 112 like to 118 range, somewhere in there, while the Lakers will probably just be at like that 103 area, plus or minus 3 points. So under 227. Thank you for watching. I appreciate all the likes and the views on the videos. Leave any of your comments on your predictions on the game. And once again, thanks for watching.